things from my work as well when I see fit, but ultimately I'm here with the CaGBC. So just continuing a little bit about me. Yeah, so graduated from SAIT, sustainability consultant at Footprint. I'd be there about 4 years in December here. I've been volunteering with the CaGBC for 5 years with the Alberta chapter. So I've been volunteering with them since I was a student, and I actually learned about them during a lunch and learn, just like this. We had free pizza at that one though, so I'm really sorry I can't offer that to you today. Hopefully some of you have some pizza or something like it. And I'm also the chair of the Emerging Green Professionals program for YYC. So we are a committee that's under the CaGBC Alberta chapter. And what we do is we focus on delivering events and education for emerging professionals. So whether that's someone who is currently in school like yourself, someone that's new to the industry, or you know, under the age of 30 is kind of the guideline they give, even though I'm not. But we just try to be able to deliver you know, information and help you guys, you know, with advancing your career and network opportunities and such. So I'll talk a little bit more about the EGP at the end of the presentation. Let's get started. Oh, I guess I put a little joke in here. I don't know if I should have not, but I like to joke that I'm an award-winning volunteer because I actually won an award for volunteering with the CaGBC this year. So that's my little joke. I don't get to brag about it much. So hopefully you guys have laughed a little bit about that. Right, so the CaGBC, so we are the Canada Green Building Council. And what we are is a national nonprofit organization that focuses on making every building greener. How we do that is we try to lead and accelerate the transformation to high-performing, healthy green buildings, homes, and communities throughout Canada. And how we do that is through trying to help with the changing of industry standards. We can help with developing design best practices and guidelines, which I can talk a little bit later. We also do a lot of advocating for green buildings, and we help to develop educational tools to support members, you know, whether they're established professionals or new professionals like yourself, just to try to be able to help them sustain these design practices going forward in their career. So this building here, this one is the University of British Columbia, the Earth Sciences building. This one here was designed by Perkins and Will. It's located in Vancouver, BC, and it is a LEED Gold building. You will hear me talk about LEED. So I just, you know, I know we don't have a poll option, but how many people here have heard of LEED? If you can just write yes in the chat bar, I can actually see it. So if you've heard of LEED. A lot more yeses than I thought. That's awesome. I recognize some names here from some previous EGP events. That's awesome. Cool, so that's great. Yeah, a lot of you know what LEED is. So hopefully I'm not too repetitive here, but we do talk about LEED because CaGBC is highly involved with LEED. Both the CaGBC and the GBCI Canada, which is actually the certifying body for them as well. So these are some beautiful examples of some sustainable buildings that you can see throughout Canada, and they're located in Calgary as well. So green building. So first of all, sustainability and green is a really vague term. Everybody you ask it will mean something different. For the purposes of this, I think that we can kind of define it best to say, just trying to consume less resources, trying to, you know, hurt our impact on the world a little bit less. So in terms of, you know, the design and construction industry, the industry, and as well as the built environment, can contribute up to 40% of the world's material and energy. So this has to do with not just, you know, the building getting constructed, but also has to deal with the building and its lifespan. So typically when we look at the lifespan of a building, we think about a 60-year lifespan, and that's how we kind of calculate it, something called life cycle analysis, but this kind of contributes to that too, right? So 35% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions are from buildings. 33% of Canada's energy consumption, 50% of Canada's natural resource consumption, 12% of non-industrial water use, 25% of waste going to landfill comes from the design and construction industry. So it's pretty high when you think about, you know, we work in our buildings, we live in our buildings, go to school, like we do all this stuff every day. And you know, they kind of say how, you know, every action has a reaction. It's the same thing with the building, right? If you're going to build something, you're going to make the materials for it. Something is going to come from it, and it's typically from our resources, from our energy consumption and water use. So what are the top drivers for future green building? So there's a couple of different things here. I do apologize. Some of this information is a little bit old, but it's still really relevant. Some people think that it's just the right thing to do. When we talk about sustainability, we're talking about trying to make a better world for the people around us and our future generations. I was just making a joke to somebody at work today about how I have to make sure that the new people know how to do sustainability because I've slacked a little bit or something like that. So we always talk about people leaving us behind these issues. So it is the right thing to do. We want to help our future generations. We want to make sure that our Earth stays a habitable place for many generations to come. In terms of building, though, it's a client demand. There are a lot more clients that are looking to build green. They're thinking about, it's the responsible thing to do. It can save them money in the long run. Maybe something to do with, their client demands, what their tenants might want. Lower operating costs is definitely a part of that. It is can be cheaper to operate a green building because of all the measures that are involved. There's also corporate social responsibility commitment. There are companies out there specifically that want to be very green companies. There are companies who try to do like net zero, and they try to do carbon neutral. So this contributes to that. If they work in a building and they want their processes to match where they are, there's great reasons for that, as well as branding and public relations. It looks good. Of course it looks good to be a green company, so there is some of that behind it too, but these are all really great reasons to do that. And it's interesting that most of these numbers in Canada are a lot higher, which I think is kind of cool. One of the big concerns for green building is that it's more expensive. And this is something that was seen a number of years ago, that trying to build a more green building would essentially cost you a little bit more. So that's some of the concerns about why people might be a little bit more hesitant to it. This number here shows that 66% in Canada thought that there would be a higher first cost, that there's a lack of market demand, or that it's just not plain affordable at all. But this is where there's a bit of a perception gap, is what they're saying. It was estimated there'd be anywhere between a 1% to 29% cost premium on green building, but we're actually seeing it can be either a negative impact, or it can go to about 12.5%. Typically, we see about I've seen within my company about a 10% impact on higher costs, but this is changing. And as more as this becomes the new norm, and this is something that people do more, they're actually noting that there's it's evening out quite a bit more. I do apologize. I live on a really busy street, so if you hear any motorcycles, it's outside. I actually had a presentation last week with the Emerging Green Professionals group that I'm a part of, and we actually talked about Passive House. And the person that lived inside a passive house building, designed a passive house building, actually noted that in some countries, because of reimbursements and because of other community initiatives, that they actually saw as much as a negative impact on their thing. They actually saved money by building green. So there's definitely options for that. And as the prices are going down, it's a lot more accessible to people, and makes a lot more sense to build green. So yeah, they're saying here that green building is becoming more affordable with increasing returns on investment. So you're creating a more energy efficient system. So if you're creating a really good building envelope, it's airtight, you're going to have less air loss, and you actually might have a better performing building. They say that over 70% of owners and architects involved in green building construction estimate that their payback is about within 10 years, which is pretty good. Obviously, it's going to vary building to building, but a 10-year payback seems to be quite reasonable for the long establishment of these buildings here. Again, I will share this with you, so there is a bit more information here, but obviously we can go over that a little bit more. Additionally, they also say that for buildings that have some type of efforts for sustainability, whether it be a certification or just better building material and design, there can actually be an increase in rent, which obviously some companies are very much willing to pay for, but it actually is a bit of a marketing incentive as well to be able to increase your overall revenue. This one here, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the 2030 challenge. There was a kind of an initiative from Architecture 2030 in order to try to become carbon neutral. you know, it doesn't always go as planned. I can't speak too much about it, but they issued this challenge back in 2006 in order to try to, you know, encourage people to try to start doing carbon neutral building by 2030. So right now we're in 2020. This graphic, I believe, is from 2018, and it does show that, you know, we need to start reducing our fossil fuel energy consumption. And so far we've done about, I think it's like a 70% reduction in these items, but we still need to kind of keep going more in order to do that. Whether we can reach this goal by 2030, it's hard to say. We'll see, I guess. This one here talks about the environmental benefits. So this is information that was pulled from 2005 to 2015. So energy savings is a huge impact from green building. And I say here that there was 6,503,647 megawatt hours of savings, which was enough to power 220,000 homes in Canada for a full year. And that's just on the energy savings from some LEAP projects. There's also a reduction in greenhouse gases, which was over 1.26 million carbon CO2 equivalent tons. And this is enough to take over 200,000 cars off the road for a year. There's also a 12.8 billion liter savings for water, which is enough to do 5,131 Olympic-sized swimming pools. There's also recycling, 1.6 million tons of construction demolition waste, which represents over 400,000 garbage truckloads. So urban heat as well, which I talk about installing green roofs. So green roofs are interesting. The urban effect comes from kind of like really condensed downtown areas, where having all these areas kind of just makes the temperature rise in areas like the downtown core. I don't know how much impactful it is in Calgary, but in places like Toronto, it's pretty big. So they're saying that there was enough green roofs installed to cover 153 NHL hockey rinks. So that's pretty big. Here's some statistics. I'll let you guys read them in the next, when I send out the slide there. In terms of greenhouse gas emissions, so these are some projections going from 2030 as of September of 2015. I do apologize, I don't have any newer graphics for this one. The red area shows kind of, so the red versus the blue area shows the do and the do nots. So red shows if we don't do anything, we can kind of anticipate by 2030 that our megatons of carbon equivalent will be around the 875 range. If we do, we can go between 815 to 765. Unfortunately, this does look like it comes pretty far away from our targets. Our Canada 2020 target is 622, and our Canadian 2030 target is 524. So we still have a long way to go. So how can we do this is, I guess, the next best question. So we have buildings that are being built every day. We have existing buildings, and the best things that we can do are try to focus on those two avenues to help do massive reductions. You know, when it comes to sustainability, people, you know, always kind of think to themselves, like, what can I personally do to be sustainable? And that's a whole other conversation. That's not really a CaGBC thing. But individually, we can only have so much of an impact, right? Ultimately, it comes down to our built environment, manufacturers, and a bunch of other items like that. So don't stop recycling, you know, keep using your, you know, reusable water bottles. But ultimately, we need to make changes to the environment around us as well. So one of the things that the CaGBC works with a lot is green building rating systems. So green building rating systems, we'll talk about a couple different ones in here, LEED being one of the more popular ones. Green building rating systems are a great way in order to motivate people to try to do better. You guys are doing building code classes. I don't know if you have any in this term. I think you might. But building code is the minimum performance requirements, right? Back when I was there, I had an amazing teacher who would say that code minimum is exact that. It's the minimum. We need to do better. We need to keep aiming higher. And that's what these green building rating systems are ultimately there for, is to try to make us do something more stringent so that we can keep making these changes, so that eventually those become the new normal. And then we can just keep raising the bar from there. So one of the ones that I work with personally on a day-to-day basis is called LEED. So that's Leadership for Energy and Environmental Design, which it looks like a lot of you have heard about already. Maybe some of you were in a class last year with Jesus in which I presented about it. Maybe some of you have come to some of my events or have heard about it through other avenues, but that's great. So I'm going over some stuff that you guys know. I apologize if not, hopefully I'm teaching you something new. So yeah, it's a leadership and energy environmental design is a building rating system that includes both new buildings, so your brand new construction, your existing buildings, as well as homes and neighborhoods. Calgary actually has a LEED neighborhood project. I believe it's the University District. So that's pretty cool. I don't have any information about that, but if you guys want more information, it's a quick Google away. And there's also some homes as well. I actually have a friend who lives in a LEED home, which is pretty cool. I don't think I'll ever be able to afford a mortgage, so we'll see how that goes. Too much avocado toast. Anywho, so qualities of LEED. So LEED is essentially was developed by the United States Green Building Council, the USGBC, and is adapted for over 160 countries. So previously we had a LEED for Canada version. Right now we're all kind of working from the same one. It's a voluntary program, so you don't have to do it. But I'm going to put a little asterisk beside that because there are a lot of areas that make LEED mandatory. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But this is a full scope that addresses environmental and health priorities. And that's kind of what's been deemed by industry professionals to be the important areas to look on. So they are consensus-based, driven by industry experts. They have advisory panels. They make changes to the rating system based on what people are saying. And it's a third-party certification, so it goes through a review. You will get called out on certain items if they don't think that you're doing it as per the requirements. And the ultimate part about LEED is that it's with the 3 Ps, which is people, planet, and profit. So we need to positively affect the people, we need to positively affect the planet, and we need to be able to have some type of marketability and economic growth from it, which is why there's profit in there as well. So what LEED measures, and you will see this kind of through your careers, and you will see this throughout other green building rating systems, but these are the kind of areas that they focus on. So sustainable sites, I do apologize, I realize that there's an error on this one. So sustainable sites, it's essentially where your project is building, specifically what kind of land are you building on. There is another section on here called location and transportation, which focuses on where your actual building is located. Are you in the middle of nowhere? Are you in the dense, urban downtown environment? How readily accessible are transit services and alternate ways of transportation. Water efficiency is a really large one, talking about the use of potable water through indoor and outdoor options. Energy and atmosphere, which just focuses on not just the energy efficiency of your building, but how your building kind of affects everything else around it. Materials and resources, which is how the materials that your building is using, whether that's existing materials or new materials. Indoor environmental quality, so that's literally the air that you breathe every day. We'll talk a little bit more about indoor environment quality and health and wellness. A little bit more, I'm gonna try to just pick up the pace here a little bit, but essentially the breathing air that you have. And they also have some sections here based on what's important to your area. So, what's important in Calgary might not be as important in Toronto based on water issues, or, there's innovation, which is kind of additional items that an owner or a client would like to implement. So this is based on a 100-point scale, and you will earn certification based on based on your total score. There's also items that you must do, which are called prerequisites. And then the credits are how you earn your points. So 40 to 49 points certified, 50 to 59 points is silver, 60 to 79 points is gold, and 80 is platinum. So there's a new version of LEED that came out. I think it was 2014 was originally released in the US, and then it kind of hit Canada in 2018, 2016 to 2018, when it was required that you register for this new service. So platinum projects are a lot harder to see, but you do see them. Gold and silver are typically where we see projects go, but you do still see LEED platinum projects around, but they might be with a previous version of LEED, which was LEED version 2009. There are a bunch of LEED version 2009 registered projects all around Calgary that just are still waiting certification as well. So when it comes to talking about improved environmental outcomes, this kind of just describes what I described earlier, that as these rating systems are created, it's kind of becoming market things change. So without going into too much detail, there's some things that this new version of LEED V4 asks for. from manufacturers. And some of these manufacturers didn't have the information, such things as environmental product declarations. And now that LEED is out and it's requesting them, and our clients are requesting them, and we're requesting them from these manufacturers, they're starting to produce these items. They're trying to be more transparent about how they're making things. They're trying to be more transparent in, their environmental impacts on each product. So as these rating systems are coming out, it's kind of pushing manufacturers and designers to make changes in how they do things. So every time a new version of a rating system comes out, it pushes them a little bit harder. So, a new version will come out, standards will change, or best practices will happen. So that's kind of what we want to see. Right now we're on LEED version 4, which is a great standard. And when it came out, it kind of shook the industry up a little bit. And next thing you know, well, I'll talk a little bit more, but in Alberta, you have to follow what is called the National Energy Code for Buildings for 2017. This was done in April of 2019, I believe. And it's about as stringent as for energy reduction as the version of LEED. So we're already seeing that we're kind of getting up there in terms of, how are we matching these things? So then when the next version of LEED comes out, it's going to push that one even further. Yeah, so LEED v4 has been open since 2016. Previous projects can register with no additional cost. So there's a bunch of 2009 projects that are still out there, but they're still going strong. I don't know why it's doing this animation. I don't like animations, but anyway, so highlights, yeah, so it's more stringent than previous versions. We're addressing more market sectors. They are doing more different credit ratings. So some things are considered more important, like energy consumption. So you have higher credit options. It's integrative. There's a new approach to materials and greater performance, focus on performance as well. So just brief overview, these are the different types of rating systems that are available. So, it allows for different variations, right? So if you have a project that isn't a new building, it's just like a new tenant moving into a building. It's like a Lush store. They can apply for a retail from under the interior design and construction, or if it's a Starbucks or something like that. There's also ones for existing buildings, and it covers a wide variety of types. We even have something specific for hospitals, for healthcare as well, under the BD&C, which is the one you see the most. So kind of moving on from LEED, but it's still kind of involved, is health and wellness in buildings. So this is obviously a fun infographic, but when it comes to a business operating costs, they do show that 90% of the costs come from staffing in terms of salaries and benefits. Only 9% comes from about rental costs, and only 1% in terms of energy costs. So that's from a business perspective. So if you're renting out an office space, you're not really seeing a ton of energy savings there, but your staff costs and salaries and benefits, that's pretty huge. That's pretty massive. So what health and wellness tries to do is it tries to make your environment better so that your employees are feeling great. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of sick building syndrome, but essentially if you're working in a place that isn't very well ventilated, it doesn't have good filtration, it can make people feel crappy. I remember when I've heard of people who have moved from offices, and they moved into some place that was a bit newer, a bit more renovated, and they felt massively better. They feel like they're able to think better, and that's very possible, right? Working from home every day, I've been working at home since March. I'm able to open up my big patio and just have like all this beautiful fresh air coming in, and it's absolutely lovely. I would say it makes me perform better, but I'm also more distracted by traffic, so it doesn't help very much. But they talk about opportunities for reducing premiums on your healthcare costs, because if you have a building that's making people feel better, they're more productive, maybe there won't be as many sick days. Maybe people will be more productive, and that way they're not dragging out the days and not going over budget on projects. These are really great things that are kind of happening. So let's see here. What does this beautiful infographic say here? Yeah, so they're able to see a 38% of owners who report an increased building value see an increase of 7% or more, 46% lease space more quickly, and are able to charge premium rent. So this talks about if you have a green building, there are some of these great benefits that are available. But in terms of health and wellness, like it's pretty incredible. You know, just adding a plant to a space can make something pretty amazing too, right? That's why there's a building system called WELL. So WELL isn't directly underneath the CaGBC, but we do have a for-profit business called the GBCI Canada, which is the administrator behind these projects or these building rating systems. So they actually go and they certify them and all that jazz. So WELL building rating system it's pretty souped up in terms of LEED. This I would always talk about from like the standpoint of like this is for like the Googles and for the Apples and for like the really big businesses out there, but really it does apply to pretty much anybody. But this one focuses on mind, comfort, fitness, light, nourishment, water, and air. And it's really similar to LEED in that there are, you know, prerequisites that you have to do, which they call preconditions, and then there are credits, which are called optimizations. And each of these sections uses studies and like they point directly to specific studies that will say, we found that by increasing something by X percent, you can get 20% more productivity. There's some really interesting ones in there for fitness, for example. There's an optimization that relates to having like those bicycle pedals under your desk while you're working, which is super interesting to me. I don't know if I'd ever do that. There's even one for giving your employees Fitbits or activity trackers. There's even things for you know, not having some type of inter-office communication system so that you actually have to go and talk to your coworker versus just writing them over the internet, which I think during COVID has been really, really important. So maybe not, you know, not for everybody. I work remotely and my office is with footprint is spread about all across Canada. So I only have two other people that work in my office with me. So I'm very much used to Microsoft Teams and Skype and all that jazz. So, oops, here we go. Energy benchmarking, like I will admit, this is not my area strong suit here. So I will just kind of read from the slide here, but the CaGBC did work with a company called Integral Group back in 2016 to create the National Energy Benchmarking Framework Report. So this was kind of like a set of standards and practices that they thought would be a really great thing to apply throughout Canada. And that way this can be applied to, you know, how much energy efficiency we should be looking at from province to province. And it doesn't mean that you have to create new rules from each municipality, each city, etc. So it's just a base recommendation for government based on stakeholder input, industry research, and principles and other efforts as well. So this report is available online if you guys want to take a further look into it. It's pretty long, but yeah, this is something that the CaGBC has worked on with industry professionals as well. One of the things that one of the big reasons why people ask me about LEED and like why should they register for it, there are people who like to follow LEED practices without actually going for certification. I have seen this. When they say, why should we register? One of the first things that I point to is that you can't manage what you don't measure. One of the big things about these green building rating systems that I find to be so important is that you're actually getting verification. I can say that I've reduced my water consumption by 40%. Who's gonna actually know that? Like maybe I did the calculations wrong. Maybe along the way during construction, something has changed and we've had to change out specific fixtures. So what this does is it allows you to be held accountable. I have worked on projects before where they haven't gone for LEED certification and some things have gone horribly wrong. So when it comes to this, I say you cannot manage what you don't measure. And it says here, where there's a scoreboard, people play differently. It's very true. People are much more serious about projects that are going through these green building rating systems than people who have not fully registered for them and are just going for the principles for it. Timeline-wise, I'm going to speed it up just a little bit here. I can talk forever. Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So this is something as well that the CaGBC kind of encourages is for additional energy benchmarking and reporting. This is actually something that we put into the owner's hands. So whenever you have an owner, you have an operator of the building, and this allows your building owners and operators to track their usage over time, comparing their building to its past performance and other buildings within the portfolio manager. So you can say, I have, you know, a tower that's this many square meters. How energy efficient am I compared to some other comparable buildings? And it will actually tell you you're doing better or you're doing worse. And based on this information, you're able to make changes, which is really important. Public disclosure is a really big thing. I know that in the real estate industry, they're trying to start having homes display what their energy information is. There are homes out there that are really old and they don't have insulation. There are homes out there that are maybe not constructed the best. And they're just trying to have that public disclosure so that, in that case, what you're buying. For this, it's how you're operating. And this one here can also inform better government policies and programs. One of the big things that you'll figure out too is that if you don't tell somebody how things are going, like say, for example, like at your job, if you don't tell somebody that you're having problems, they might not know. And that's the same thing with buildings. If we don't give information to our governments and our municipalities to say, this is how our buildings are actually performing on a regular basis, they won't know, and they won't know that they need to make changes. Some graphics here, I'll let you guys take a look at them in the slides once I send them out. There's another standard here called the Zero Carbon Building Standard as well. How many of you guys have heard of net zero buildings or zero carbon buildings? Put in the chat if you've heard of them. And yeah, 8th Avenue Place is in downtown Calgary, and I can actually see it from my window as well, which is pretty cool. Excellent. A lot of people have heard of it, which is fantastic. So yeah, the Zero Carbon Building Standard is something that came out, I think it was in 2018, 2019, I probably should know that. But ultimately, the idea is that we're trying to get to a certain area where we're trying not to have that much of an impact on buildings. As I mentioned before, everything that we do has an impact, right? So any building will have an impact on on the environment. It's just a matter of reducing the amount of impact that we have. So making better choices in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of materials, and in some cases that also means, alternative energy sources. So with the CaGBC Zero Carbon Building Standard, it is a standard that's publicly available. If you guys want to go take a look at it, it is available online. This one talks about prioritizing the pursuit of zero emissions. So how that can be done is by reducing your overall greenhouse gas impact, or your carbon emissions impact. So that way you can offset it with things like renewable energy, which is either on-site or off-site. A great example of this, I believe the McKinney complex on the U of C campus, they are working on doing stuff like this. I'm not 100% sure if they're registered for the standard or not, but the U of C has been really great at their on-campus sustainability. I can't remember his name, Adam Stoker. He's fantastic, and the CaGBC and the EGPs have worked with him quite a bit in terms of trying to get more information out there, because their campus is just fantastic at all these sustainability initiatives. He's like their sustainability specialist in-house. And they are doing amazing things to try to reduce the overall greenhouse gas emissions of their projects. So they're right with the McKinney complex, they actually have an existing building that they are renovating and trying to make more energy efficient, which is fantastic. For the Zero Carbon Building Standard, this applies to institutional buildings, offices, multi-unit residential, and commercial houses. So the information is available online if you guys had more questions about that, or you can always email me as well. So yeah, some of the items that it includes is, reducing your energy and your carbon, having a good site, whether or not where your project is located. So Alberta has a coal grid, and both Alberta and Saskatchewan are two of the highest contributors in terms of our electrical grid. So if you have a project that's based in Alberta versus based in Vancouver, our Alberta project will end up having more greenhouse gas emissions, which is unfortunate. But if something needs to be built in Calgary, you can't just go ahead and build it in Vancouver, right? So we kind of have to work with what we have, which is why, understanding there's trade-offs for items like this is really, really important as well. They talk about on-site and off-site renewables. I know that Alberta is one of the best places to have solar energy just because of our locations. We get one of the highest number of daylight hours, I believe it is. So it's a great place to have these kind of items. I'm running pretty low on time here, so let me kind of move ahead just a little bit. Again, this will be available for you here. So with the CaGBC, we do say that, with the green building industry, there is an option, there is ability to create more jobs and to create more GDP as well. So in 2014, Canada's green building industry generated $23.45 billion in GDP and supported almost 300,000 direct jobs. This is fantastic. And there's a bunch of different ways of doing industry. I believe SAIT actually had like a solar program. I don't know if they still have it or not, but that's fantastic ways of getting new education and new industries out there as well. This one talks about the green building definition. We probably should have had that at the beginning of the slide. Yeah, so we talk about energy rating standards. We talk about rating system certification. Let's just continue on. So in green building in Canada, it's more than just energy and environment to economic drivers, with industry leading the market transformation. Social sustainability, which is how your company operates. You guys have initiatives within your place for sustainability. Health and wellness is a really important part of that. And as you know, we're always trying to be innovative, and that's kind of pushing the boundaries for this as well. But allows us to have growing investments and create new jobs. In terms of how LEED has helped, so from 2009 to 2014, the amount of floor space that has increased by more than 10 times. So from 2004 to 2009, we had about almost 2 million square feet of certified space. As of 2014, we have about 21 million, which is fantastic. There are a ton of LEED projects that are happening all around. In terms of the types, we have here an increase in residential, an increase in commercial, increase in institutional, increase in industrial, and a total increase of over 10%. Most of the projects that I've worked on that are LEED, I've worked on the healthcare side. Calgary Cancer Centre is one of the projects that I'm working on right now. I've also worked on some core and shell buildings in industrial areas. I've worked on schools. I've worked on multi-unit residential. So I'm kind of hitting a little bit of each of these projects as well as interior design and construction, which has been pretty cool to work with. Gonna kind of keep going forward. I do apologize that I'm going through this, but I want to make sure that we talk a little bit more about green buildings, and we don't have too much time left. So in terms of green building policy, how does Alberta, Canada stack up? So talking about LEED again, I know that it's not the main focus of the CaGBC, but it's something that we really enjoy, and I work on it on a daily basis, so I like it a lot. In terms of the green building sector, though, I mentioned that it's technically a voluntary program, but there are requirements in terms of public buildings. So in Alberta, when Alberta Infrastructure sanctions a new school or some new public projects like that, they're actually required to be LEED Silver. So there is a huge amount of growth in terms of Alberta because we've had all these projects that have had to be certified. It's pretty great to see these, and a lot of these items I'm seeing are becoming more of a best practice. So not just something that they think they need to do for LEED, but there's something they would have done anyway, but now they're getting recognition for it through these rating systems. So if you can see here, there's BC has LEED Gold, LEED Silver is throughout many provinces. Quebec mentions LEED Certified, and Saskatchewan and PEI don't have any requirements right now. But this is likely to change in the future. Different policies across Canada. So some of these might be a little bit outdated, I do apologize, but there are specific cities that require that there be LEED buildings. So for example, I believe it's in Victoria, they require that new buildings be LEED Silver as well. Here's some examples of projects in Alberta. So the University of Calgary has the Taylor Institute for Teaching and Learning. Just as a plug for the Emerging Green Professionals, we actually did a tour of this building last year, or was it this year? Time means nothing anymore because of COVID. And we did a tour with Adam Stoker, who was a sustainability specialist on the project, as well as Regan Moffat, who was the mechanical engineer on the project. So it was really cool kind of getting the different perspectives, and we were able to go into areas like the mechanical room and talk a little bit about that. So that is a LEED project as well. We also have SATE, the Johnson Cobb Energy Center, which is, I always called the egg building when I was there. I don't know what you guys call it these days, but the egg building is actually a LEED project as well. I believe it's a gold project. It's funny though, because if you go on the egg, it's really cold in there. I think that's funny. The Taylor Center for Performing Arts. So this is on the MRU campus. So this includes the Bella Concert Hall. This was also a project that was designed to LEED standards as well. I think it's kind of funny. My company Footprint is owned by a company called Smith & Anderson, which is a mechanical and electrical engineering company here. And they actually worked on 2 of the projects here. I did not do that on purpose. It just happened to be the way it was, so my apologies. So LEED buildings in Canada, as of January 1st, 2019, there were over 500 certified projects in Alberta, which is fantastic. And in terms of the CaGBC Alberta chapter, we're the second largest chapter behind the Greater Toronto Area chapter. So we're awesome here. Like, we care about these buildings. At that time, four of those buildings were certified for LEED version 4, which is the kind of more stringent version. And there were over 1,100 registered projects for LEED at the time. 25% of those are office building and 13% of them are K-9 schools, which is due to Alberta infrastructure requiring that that be a thing. Energy savings in Alberta, there's tons here. We got a lot of Olympic-sized swimming pools and savings of water. We've saved a lot of garbage trucks. We've taken a lot of cars off the road, and we've covered a lot of hockey arenas in green buildings. So again, I'll let you guys kind of take a look at this afterwards. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. But with every one of these projects that come along, we have to think about energy savings. We need to think about water savings. We think about how our buildings and construction contribute to waste. So the idea of diverting from the landfill, and overall, this all helps to impact our greenhouse gas reduction. So all of these projects that are going contribute to all of these amazing things. And it doesn't mean that projects that don't register for LEED don't, but this is what we're able to measure and verify because we have the information available. So to quickly talk about LEED and how it could work with you guys, is that there are things called LEED accreditation. So you can actually go and get certified, or sorry, become an accredited professional for LEED. There's two different ways of doing that. You can, oh yeah, sorry, I should mention, people are accredited, buildings are certified. So you're not a certified person, you're an accredited person. A building isn't accredited, it's certified. This happens a lot in the industry. It's really funny. I don't like correcting them, but I kind of do. So if you're a new student starting out or new to the industry, and you want to learn more about LEED and you want to show that you kind of have a really great understanding of the practices behind it, LEED Green Associate is a great way for people to start. This is like the beginner exam that you take, and it allows you to put it in your signature. You can be a LEED Green Associate after your name, and it kind of shows that you understand the basic practices and principles. Is this something that you guys need to go and do? That's completely up to you. I know that there are courses that are available, like Kickstarter courses that teach people about the LEED Green Associate. I know that for some companies, it's a mandatory requirement that people get this. At some point during your time at your company, you might have to get your LEED Green Associate. So whether or not you have it before or after, that might look good for companies, but that's entirely up on you. And also there is a cost required. So I don't like telling people to spend money. You do have that however you want, but there is LEED Green Associate is kind of like your beginner. And then we go to the LEED AP, which is the accredited professional. And we have different options depending on the different building rating systems that you want to work on. So I work primarily with the BD&C rating system, which is building and design for new buildings. But I also work with interior design and construction, so I'm currently getting my ID&C. And then if you're super amazing and you've gotten all of them, you can become a LEED AP fellow. I think there's only one person in Alberta that has it right now, which is Matt Grace, who's on the CaGBC board of directors as well. So yeah, 3-tier system. So yeah, this just kind of talks about some of the benefits behind it. Sorry, guys. So yeah, building design expertise, basic knowledge of the green design, construction, and operations required first step for further accreditation. So it's, I wouldn't say it's super challenging exam, but you definitely will overstudy for it if you guys ever want to go for it. If anyone is interested in grabbing their exam, feel free to give me an email. I do have my email at the end of the discussion here, and I can give you some great resources on where to go to study for this. So benefits of accreditation, proving green building knowledge, it's marketable. You do get a public listing on the GBCI website. And then there is a continuing education requirement for it, which I actually really like. It says that you need to kind of earn so many hours in order to maintain your credentials. But for me, that means additional learning, right? So I don't work on the construction site. I don't work as an architect or an engineer. I actually never worked as an architectural technologist, which kind of sucks, but this allows me to learn about other parts of the industry as well. So I can learn about daylighting. I can learn about, best construction practices for waste. So I personally really enjoy my LEED continuing education. If you do want to go for the exam, there is a cost involved, and all the costs are unfortunately listed in American dollars. But as full-time students, you can get the Lead Green Associate exam for $100 USD, which is pretty cool. But it has to be done while you're in school. So, plan it in your summers if you're looking to go for it. And really quickly, I'm just going to finish off with what the Alberta chapter does for you and the Emerging Green Professional. So I'll maybe take about like 5 more minutes, and then I can open it up for questions. So with the Alberta chapter, what we do as a CaGBC is that we are huge on advocacy, education, and networking. So obviously we're in a COVID world right now, and things have changed quite dramatically. We're not really doing our in-person networking events like we used to. So we've all kind of moved online. But in terms of advocacy, we're constantly fighting for sustainability practices. It doesn't have to be LEED, but we have written letters to the governments, to our municipalities to say, we believe it's in your best interest to look into changing your sustainability practices, and these are the reasons why. And we will advocate on behalf of green buildings, especially since there is, shown that there are, job creation when it comes to this, and it's, as we mentioned, the right thing to do. We also, have a huge network of companies and people within our industry. So we have over 600 industry professionals in the Alberta chapter alone. A lot of really big name architectural companies are part of our network, and they are constantly showing up to our events. They're constantly contributing to our causes. What I love about our networking events, and what I loved as a student, is that I would go to a networking event, randomly sit at a table, and I was able to talk to an architect, mechanical engineer, and just be able to have a conversation about them. So networking is really great. I'm a huge person for networking. I always advise for it, even if you're a little bit shy, recommend it. So yeah, learn, network, connect. That's what we try to do. Boost your career. So yeah, we have a ton of education that we have online. We're constantly adding new content to our education, kind of like I was saying with me learning about different parts of the industry. They have all that information up there. Lots of on-demand courses. There's also some live programs and certification courses as well. So we'll not lie to you guys, there is a membership involved, but we will always have free items as well. So when you guys graduate and you guys go on to join all these amazing firms, if your company is a national member, you will automatically get a membership. While you guys are students, there is an option for a $35 Emerging Green Professionals membership, and I am part of the EGP program myself. Not saying you guys should buy it, not saying you guys shouldn't. I'm not going to spend your money for you. You guys decide for that if that's up to you. Probably not saving a little bit of money by not going to Tim Hortons on campus every day, so that's kind of cool. Typically with our Emerging Green Professionals membership, what I would say in a pre-COVID world is that it gives you great access to discounts on our events. Most of our events are online right now, and they are free. It's easier for us, but most of our events are online right now. Back when we go forward and we move to having in-person events again, EGP members will get free admission to our events. And we do have national conferences as well as an Alberta conference called the Alberta Sustainable Building Symposium. And EGPs and students will get discounts on those. So something to look into, but don't feel like you have to sign up today. We still will offer events throughout COVID, and we're making them accessible to students right now by having them free. So yeah, EGPs, we are young, maybe not me, but we're young, innovative, enthusiastic, smart, and passionate. We want to be a part of something bigger, and 30% of our chapter is EGPs. So if you are a full-time student, which you guys are, if you're 30 years of age or younger, or you're new to the industry within 5 years, you are an EGP. So as I mentioned, you get discounts. Because you're a member, you can actually vote on who becomes our new board of directors whenever that happens. You're also able to use the CaGBC logo in your email if you're a member, as well as you become eligible for upcoming events. Like we had a poster competition one year, but you had to be an EGP member to do it. Some of the events that we do are the Superhero Series, in which we invite industry professionals to come talk to us about sustainability. So we've had people talk about the trend of existing building renovations. We've had mechanical engineers, architectural people come and talk to us. We've had green drinks events with people from the city of Calgary, Manask, Isaac, Dialogue come and talk to us. We've also done bike tours in the summer, obviously not this year, but previously we've done bike tours of green homes. We do building tours. We were able to go to the very top of the Brookville Place building before they started letting anybody in, which was super awesome. We were on the Telus Sky building while it was still being constructed. And we also do speed networking events as well. I believe there's also an Edmonton chapter as well for people that, I don't know if anybody here is actually in Edmonton or from Edmonton, but we do have an Edmonton EGP as well. And they do events, but we're doing them together obviously because of COVID right now, but they have a Green Drinks event coming up here as well. Here's some photos. So Cheryl and Will Thompson did a event for us this year. We also had Snap Builders and the Murdoch family talk about their amazing sustainable home on a budget. We did a tour of the Taylor Institute, and that's the bike tour for us. So this is where I should say thank you. That's my email, but I'm ready to open up for questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Christina. I have a quick question.
Sure.
So if building is certified, how long does LEED building certification last? Like, do they have to register again?
That's actually a great question. So under the LEED regular new construction rating system, once your building is certified, it's certified. Which is good and bad because it doesn't mean that the LEED police are going to come around and check to see that you're still maintaining all the items that you're doing. But it's unfortunate because changes can be made that might not work for what the LEED system was designed for. If you have an existing building project, you have to recertify that one every 3 years. And I believe the same is for the well rating system as well. It's every 3 years. Okay, which is good because it allows you to change with the growth of the rating system as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. I'm just looking in the comments here, and I'm glad that you guys are still calling it the egg. That makes me very happy. Do you guys call the building at the front the bacon building, or is that just me?
Someone called like lasagna.
Oh, the lasagna building. That works as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Awesome. So this is kind of specific, but you mentioned something about increasing floor space, and that floor space has increased by 10%. What does that mean? How is this done? So, sorry, my apologies. That one is with the amount of space that was certified by the LEED standard. So over the course of an additional 5 years, we saw a 10 times increase in the amount of certifiable space that we've had. So my apologies for not being super clear on that one. Actually, this brings up an off-topic item, but kind of not really. Building massing is so important in sustainability, especially when it comes to items like the amount of daylight you pull in, which can actually decrease your load on electricity for lighting. So designing your buildings, it comes really important for daylighting and for quality views. So one thing that we talk about is to try to have a decreased floor depth, decreased floor plate in order to kind of allow more light to go through. And yeah, it's kind of, it brings up something kind of different, but you know, if you don't have to make your building so long and fat, you can make them a bit taller. It really helps. Cool. I'm also open to answering questions about my career since I've been a graduate as well. So doesn't have to be specific to CaGBC.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you said that you volunteer before for Canada Green Building Council. Yeah. So is this volunteer type of thing is still working? How is it working right now?
So right now, we don't have many volunteers at all. So when I started volunteering with the CaGBC, it wasn't specifically with the Emerging Green Professionals program at the beginning. I'm really good at being annoying and kind of inserting myself into areas. So I was able to kind of say, hey, you know, I'm a student, I have a bit of extra free time on my hands. I think I was living on campus at the time. And I just told the CaGBC, hey, like, do you guys need anything from me? And occasionally I just kind of help set up some events and do some stuff like that. As I stayed along, my responsibilities started to grow a little bit. Right now at the CaGBC, volunteering is kind of at a standstill because we don't have in-person events, which is really unfortunate. I miss them so much. I love being able to talk with people one-on-one. Like Zoom is great, but nothing will beat face-to-face. So hopefully we can get over this hurdle soon. You know, we're always looking for people to kind of contribute and to give us ideas. And we do kind of have like a list of volunteers we will start reaching out to in the future when we have in-person events again, whenever that will be. So if people are interested in volunteering in the future, let me know. I can feel free to give me an email. I can't guarantee we'll be able to provide you any volunteering opportunities in the next little while. But this can be anything from, you know, helping out with future events. I know, for example, like we had the bike tour last year, and we needed some people to kind of just, you know, be part of the bicycle line to make sure people weren't getting lost and to make sure things were going well. We've had people hand out flyers at our events, so pretty low commitment. We also have the Emerging Green Professionals Committee, who I'm the chair of, and you know, we like bringing in students every once in a while to voice their opinions. And I was actually going to be sending an email to Cheryl because we would like to look for a student ambassador for the AT program, someone who could deliver our information for us. So there's opportunities there as well. I will say, and Cheryl will, I'm sure, agree with me, but volunteering is a really great way to get your name in the industry. When I graduated, I did have a 6-month period where I didn't have any employment at the time, but I kept volunteering and I kept my name in there. And by the time I had an interview, the person already knew who I was through my volunteering experience.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I overshare. Sorry, guys. Any other questions at all?
Yeah, I had a question. As a sustainability specialist, is there any specific technology that you use that we wouldn't see as ATs in general?
Like programs and stuff like that?
Yeah.
You know, that's actually a super great question. I will actually say that there's nothing too crazy that I'm using right now that I wouldn't have used in school. Like I have a couple people that are in the industry as well, and they work on a bit more of the energy efficiency side where they've used like the thermal imaging guns and items like that. In terms of like computer software, like I still use Revit, I still use AutoCAD, I use Bluebeam on a regular basis. So if those are programs that you guys need to get good at, I think those are important to have. But it's really just kind of, you know, basic, those things that you're learning in school will apply to other jobs. Just how they are used might be a little bit differently. For example, I've never actually worked in Revit as a designer, but I've been able to use it to do schedules and takeoffs and you know, try to find information about the building that I can take and apply to another item. One thing that I didn't get to really mention in my presentation is a thing called life cycle analysis. And I really encourage you guys to give this a quick Google because it talks about how your building contributes. As I mentioned, every building will contribute to carbon emissions. It's just a matter of how much. So it's something really interesting for you guys to kind of look up. Just do a quick Google and maybe read some articles on it. You can even look up the carbon emissions of your iPhone. It's pretty high, but I still have one. So, but yeah, in terms of that, like I'd say continue to build your skills with SAIT and the tools that they're providing you, and just kind of keep up with additional research. But in terms of like programs or things, there really isn't much else I've had to learn, which has been great because I'm tired of learning. I'm old. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
If you're old, what does that make me, Christina?
Oh, hey, how's it going? I didn't see you were there.
Just pop. Well, I've been listening, but I didn't want to interrupt. So it's good to see you doing so well and showing your same spunk. So awesome.
Well, you're the guy that taught it to me, so thank you. He taught me my building sustainability practices class, so it's all because of him.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I missed that class. We don't actually have that formal class anymore, so that's
unfortunate. Yeah. No.
We have to squeeze it in other places, but excellent presentation. Thanks very much, Christina.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, any other questions? Oh, hey, Nico.
I've been watching the chat here, and it looks like you've got most of the questions. It's 1 o'clock now, so I guess we'll wrap things up to respect your time, Christina. Yeah. Once again, thank you so much for giving us your lunch break here to come talk to us and for sharing your contact information. I'm sure many of us will be in contact with you for the future.
Yeah, absolutely happy to answer any questions. You know, I was exactly where you guys were, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, and I really appreciated the CaGBC being a resource for me, and I'll try my best to do that for you as well. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything, just feel free to let me know. I have my email address right here, and yeah, happy to help out and happy to be a part of it again.
Yeah, Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.